All right, today we're going to do one of the most simple jobs that everyone should be able to do, and that's an oil change. I'm going to do it on the 2023 Aprilia Tuono V4. Simplest thing you can do. I use Woodcraft Racing stands, front and rear, get it up off the ground, a drain bucket, a creeper, torque wrench. I don't have a 10mm Allen because 10 millimeters always go missing. So 3/8 will work in this situation. A small oil filter wrench, Allen socket set for which you really only need 4mm. And from AF1 Racing, an oil filter, 4 quarts of oil, and a new washer for your drain plug. Unfortunately, I'm in tight confines, so you'll see me move around in a strange manner, but it's, again, super straightforward. I do this way more often than Aprilia or Harley or Honda or Ducati or Nissan or anyone else recommends. I'm at 7,500 miles on this bike. I've done at this point 600, 1,600, 3,000, 5,000. This will be the 5th oil change I do on this bike. The way I figure it, oil's cheap. It doesn't take much time. So get it done often. It gives you a chance to look everything over, make sure everything else is all right. And it keeps you riding happy, safe, reliably. So let's get down to it. So we'll start with removing our lower fairing, 4mm. Again, very straightforward. There's 2 on each side. You can remove the entire assembly in one piece. There is 1 on the side and then 1 on the front here. No washers underneath, no nothing to worry about. There is 1 all the way under here, goes right into the oil pan. Don't forget it. And again, it comes right out. So again, 1 here, 1 underneath the oil pan, 1 going into the radiator, another 2 in the radiator and on the side, on the other side, and then this will come right out. All right, once all 5 bolts are out, reach inside. There'll be a little clamp here. There's 2 hoses. Pull the hoses out of the clamp, and then you can pull your lower fairing off. Do what you will with it. I'll knock off some of the dust and, generally speaking, hang it up somewhere so I can get back down to what I was doing. Now, those hoses I was talking about, make sure to push them up out of the way. I tend to just shove them up over the exhaust while I do the oil change. Make sure not to leave them there because otherwise you will burn them. Next is the drain plug. The front part of the oil pan, you don't need to use a torque wrench to loosen it. I do just to simplify things so I don't have to go hunting and then losing more tools. Again, crack it loose. Boom, right out. Relatively clean. I just got back from a trip down to Daytona. Did an oil change right before leaving. We're 2,500 or so miles afterwards. You can see there's no metal, no shavings, and the oil looks pretty good. But that doesn't mean don't change it. Like I said, oil is cheap. Why not change the oil? One thing very important not to forget is your old washer. So a lot of times they're stuck in there. Make sure you go in with a screwdriver or some sort of pick, pull it off, throw it out. They're cheap. Don't reuse them. Don't care if you lose them. Drop them in the oil. It's really irrelevant because you're going to replace it anyway, and everything's going to be nice and smooth. So while I have the oil draining, small oil filter wrench does the trick. Crack the oil filter loose. Some oil's going to get on some of your hoses, but just get some brake clean it off, some rags. It's not the end of the world. Much more important that you're actually changing this oil than if you get a little bit of oil on your hoses. Again, those are the two hoses you move out of the way just to make life easier. Make sure both this hose and this hose are routed correctly again and not left on the exhaust the way they are right now, because they'll burn real quick. Here we are, fresh oil filter, Aprilia, part number 1A023538. We'll pull it out of the bag. And spin it right on. And I'll take a little bit of oil here. Even though everything's soaked with oil, just lube the oil filter O-ring. Make sure you're good when you want to take it back off. Me, I put it on hand tight as best I can. Worst case, I figure I have the tools to get it back off, so I'd rather it not fall off. Here's something I do just because I have time. I let it drain. Just let it drain, let it sit, go do something else. You know, I'm not going to get into the argument of do it hot, do it cold. None of it makes sense to me, honestly. It makes a lot more sense to me to just let it cool off. Let all the oil drain into the oil pan, drain down from the cylinder heads, drain down from the valve train, from the transmission, everything back into the oil pan, and just let it drain. You know, people say, oh, warm the oil up because it'll drain out faster. Maybe, but also there's a lot more oil pumped up to the top end of both cylinder heads. There's oil now thrown all about in the transmission, in the clutch basket, where the stator is. For me, I let it cool off, let all the oil drain into the oil pan, and then give it a good amount of time to just drain out of the oil pan into the drain pan. It's not that hard, in my opinion. You know, you do it your way. I don't think there's a right or wrong way. This is just how I do it. Once you got everything pretty much drained, we're down to just a drip. I take my drain plug all cleaned off, new washer. Go up in there and spin it into place. I run it in by hand. Torque value is 22 foot-pounds. Pretty straightforward. Snap-on ratchet, 5, 10, 15, 20, 22. Drain pan out of the way. And she's all done. Time to clean up a little bit of the oil and put the lower fairing back on. Then we install the fairing in the reverse procedure. Like I said, do not forget to pull these hoses out from wherever you may have tucked them. I drop the fairing back in. I will make sure the hoses go into the little clamp and then verify that afterwards, because they have a habit sometimes of moving around, but you can get to them from an opening in the bottom of the fairing. It's just to keep them from the heat of the exhaust. And keep in mind, there are two different Allens. The one with the shoulder right here is for the two sides and the two front. The one without the shoulder is for underneath. And I tend to put the underneath one in first so that it holds everything in place while I'm putting this all together. You find your rhythm, you do what you want to do, but to me, dropping this one in holds it up, holds the hoses in place. Normally it doesn't fight me as much. Not a problem if it does. Alright, that took a second of futzing around, but once I get that in place, I'll put one of the radiator ones in place, and generally speaking, fairing is not going anywhere. And you are good to take your time to put everything else back together. You know, these things are easy to cross thread. I've done it. Not fun. So I take my time, get everything threaded nicely, get everything in place before snugging them all up. This bike is due for a wash too, but we'll get it done afterwards. Like I said, we just got back from a 2,500 mile round trip to Daytona Beach. We went for Biketoberfest. I rode the Aprilia and Shantae rode the Rebel 500, which did great, although it did end up taking 2 new tires, one while we were down in Dillon, Florida, the other one when I got back to New York, and I put a new chain and front and rear sprockets on it, did an oil change, adjusted a few things, and she's ready to rock and roll. Overall, cannot complain. Both bikes did great, comfortable, reliable, no issues, just racking the miles up. Tail of the Dragon we did. Can't wait to go back next year, maybe have a little bit more time and really get to enjoy Maggie Valley and some of the other routes around there, which I'm told are phenomenal. We didn't get to do that. We didn't budget quite enough time, but that's a learning lesson, right? You learn from what you do, and you do not make those mistakes a second time. So that's hopefully what we get to do for next year. Don't know which bikes we're taking. Might take this one again. I really do enjoy riding this bike, but we'll see. So, like I said, really straightforward. Next step, I'm just gonna drop some oil in it. Pretty much good to go. All right, final step. Oil fill, which is right here. And your dipstick's right here. So oil fill, dipstick. Why Aprilia does it this way is beyond me. Why not have some sort of sight glass? I don't know. Maybe that was too simple. But we'll drop 4 quarts in and go from there. And here we go, 4 quarts in. They claim, I believe, 4.1 quarts. I always have extra quarts around. Once I get it started up, I will verify it and make sure we don't need to add anything. But I found 4 quarts tends to work pretty good. Just trying to get the cap on with one hand while not spilling oil from the funnel on me with the other hand. So let's see how well I did that. It's nice and tight. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I recommend everybody do this as often as you can, as often as you're willing to. Again, oil is cheap, filters are cheap, hard parts are not. You can tell by the amount of oil drain buckets that I have around, I change oil a lot. So I wish I could explain things maybe a little bit better, show things maybe a little bit better, but I just want to get the simple stuff out there, and I'll get the complicated stuff. You know, I did a whole bunch of other things on this bike, including the Gabbro airbox and the SC Project exhaust. There's still more I will do. And the Harley, there's been a whole lot done to it. Honda, the Ducatis and everything. I will try to document more and more of what I do. But more importantly, if there's any questions, anything I can do to help people, you know, that's 27 years in the automotive industry, so I can probably answer questions a lot better than I can show you. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I hope this helps someone, and I highly recommend this beautiful machine and keeping up on your maintenance. Enjoy.